buyer trust is at an all-time low. People are more skeptical than ever when it comes to spending their money. And this low level of buyer trust is making it much harder to make sales as an online coach or practitioner. The reality is your ideal clients are likely busier than ever. They're more stressed than ever. They're more worried about their futures than ever. And they're probably being far more conservative with how they are spending their money, especially if you work with women. Women want to feel wise in the way that they're spending their money. They want to feel educated. They want to feel like they're making a good decision, even though in reality, both men and women tend to be emotional buyers because our buyers want to feel smart when they're making their decisions. And because trust is so low, people are taking longer to buy. They're doing more research. They're really trying to figure out what is the best way for them to spend their money. Now, that said, even with the economy being the way it is, even with inflation being up, even with things being more expensive than ever, consumer spending is actually still increasing, even when adjusting for inflation. So it's not just that things cost more, people are actually spending more. So if you have this belief that people aren't spending money, that everybody is keeping their wallets really closed up and they're just not circulating that money around the economy, that is not actually what's happening. Yes, there's economic factors, and I'm not going to get into those today. I'm not an economist, so feel free to do your research on that if you'd like. But I just really want you to address this belief, if you have it, that people are spending less money or that they're not willing to spend money, because it's not actually true. It's not data driven to have that belief. And research is showing that people are spending more money than ever before. Now, even though people are still spending money in the market we're in right now, people are being much more intentional about where their dollars are going. So it's not that they're spending less, they're just not spending money on things that they don't think are important or think are valuable. I saw this really interesting article recently talking about how some companies lost money this year, are seeing a decline in sales, and some companies are actually seeing an increase in sales. So an example here is McDonald's has seen a dip and a decline in their sales versus Chipotle has actually seen a pretty big bump in their sales in the same time period. The reason that people believe that this is happening is because consumers are seeking a particular level of quality, a particular level of experience. And no shade to McDonald's. I don't eat at McDonald's, but McDonald's just hasn't been delivering on quality the way that maybe people expect or want to experience when they go eat out. Versus Chipotle, maybe they've been working extra hard on creating better quality food, bringing out new products, and people are having a better experience at Chipotle, and thus they're returning and spending more money there. So I use that example because it's a really great real-world indicator of the fact that it's actually more dependent on how good of a product you're selling, how compelling of an offer that you have, how desirable it is, how valuable it is to the person that you're selling it to, and how good the experience is that you're creating for somebody. That is what determines whether or not your business is growing or shrinking in 2024. Another example of this, as far as people spending money and people spending lots of money, we're not just talking about like McDonald's hamburgers versus Chipotle burritos. We can also look at higher ticket stuff too. There was a study done recently that determined that people who attended a Taylor Swift Eras Tour concert over the past year spent an average minimum. So this isn't just the average. This is what most people were spending as a minimum to attend these concerts. A minimum of $1,400. That's $1,400 per person, not only to attend the concert with their ticket, but also to pay for food, to pay for a hotel, to pay for travel. Obviously, people are spending much more than that. There was VIP tickets, and I know people who literally flew to Europe to go see Taylor Swift play in concert. Whether or not you love or hate Taylor Swift, it's not the important part. The important part is to notice that people are spending a lot of money. And a lot of the people going to Taylor Swift concerts are not super rich, right? A lot of people at a Taylor Swift concert are 15-year-old girls and their parents or college students. These are not people who have a ton of money, but they value attending that concert enough and they want to have that experience enough that spending over $1,000 to be able to participate in it and experience it is worth it to them. And these concerts were sold out. So it is not like she was hurting for ticket sales, right? Another example of this, as far as people being willing to spend high ticket prices, even in this economy, there was research done recently to assess the average cost of a family vacation to Disney World. So they found that the average price or the average investment of a family of four to spend a week in Disney World, 7 nights at the parks and doing all the things at the parks, was anywhere from $6,000 if you were being frugal, all the way up to $15,000 and higher if you were being a little bit more frivolous. And I'm not even talking about people doing the most VIP level experiences at Disney. This is just, did you go to the park and not spend any extra money? Or did you go to the park and maybe pay for some extras like a character breakfast or a special event that was ticketed and you had to pay for, right? So a family of four, 1 week in Disney, $6,000 to $15,000. And again, I'm not sharing a specific opinion about Disney World. I've been there. It's cool. But if you think about people spending $15,000 for a 1 week vacation, that's a lot of money. And again, no shade. If that's what you value, if that's what you want to spend your money on, awesome. People should spend their money how they want. But my point is to say, if you think people aren't spending a lot of money on things that are important to them, you're dead wrong. And what's even more important here is to think about how you are perceiving the value of what you are selling. I want you to ask yourself, are you worried that somebody isn't going to spend $2,000 to $5,000 on a life-changing, transformative program or service that you're able to provide that radically improves their quality of life? You might be working with them over the course of 3, 6, 12 months to completely transform their health, their happiness, their relationships. And we think that that's barely worth what a Taylor Swift concert is worth. So I put this into perspective because I do think a lot of people out there are very concerned about maybe my prices are too high. Maybe I need to lower my prices. People aren't buying high ticket anymore. People aren't spending anymore. That is absolutely not true. And I hope that some of these examples have shown you that it's less about whether or not people are spending and far more about, are we actually selling something that people value, that they want, that they see as a good investment, and that is delivering on the expectations that people have for what they're going to get for the money that they're spending. Now, ironically, in that article I read about Disney World, I did see that a lot of people are actually complaining that they feel like the quality and the experience of Disney has dropped, that staff members are being rude, and that they have to wait in these lines even though they paid extra money. I haven't been to Disney World in probably 20 years, so I don't have an opinion about that. But I would imagine that if Disney doesn't fix those problems, they're going to start seeing a downtick in people buying tickets and how long they're staying. And they're going to have to figure out how to fix that to make sure that they're still able to attract people who are willing to spend $6,000 to $15,000 for a week vacation there. So the point of all of these examples, the point of all of this is to demonstrate that now more than ever, we need to ensure that our sales and marketing strategy is designed in a way that quickly and effectively builds trust in the quality and efficacy of our programs, of our services, that we're speaking to people who actually value what we're selling, and we're delivering on a result that they feel is worth paying for, so that our offers can be viewed as an investment rather than a gamble of their money. So I do want to talk about the types of trust we have to build, and I want to give you some specific ideas about how to build that trust. There are 3 types of buyer trust that we're going to discuss, but before we get into those specific types of trust and how to build them, let's first talk about how you can know if buyer trust is a problem with the way that you're presenting your offers to your audience, the way that you're talking to them, the way that you're even building your audience in the first place. Because maybe you think, oh, certainly my audience trusts me. I have great relationships with my followers. People are always telling me how valuable my stuff is. You might be surprised to learn that you're actually still dealing with a trust issue. So here are some symptoms to look for if you are dealing with issues of low buyer trust affecting your sales and affecting your ability to get clients. First, and this is really common, I see this with a lot of, especially newer business owners, people aren't responding to the prompts or calls to action in your content because deep down, they're not really convinced that you can actually help them solve their biggest issues. Think about it. If you put into your caption, hey, I'm giving away a free Taylor Swift ticket to one lucky person who comments this word on my post, Do you think people are going to be quiet? Do you think they're going to be like, not for me, right? Like, and I'm, again, joking about the Taylor Swift thing, but you can imagine if you were giving away a ticket like that a lot of people want, people would be responding. People would be putting that keyword on your post. You'd probably have hundreds of it and you would get a ton of engagement, right? So it's not that people don't respond at all. It's not that they're not interested in anything. It's that you are not speaking to something that they actually really care about or feel like is worth taking the effort to even write a simple keyword on a post that you've put up. Now, when people are responding, which yay, people are responding, so exciting, but maybe you're experiencing that now they need a lot of convincing to take the next step. So they post that comment, they send you the DM, they hit the like, they say, wow, this is awesome. But when it comes to actually taking the next step to book a call, to have a sales conversation, they're like hemming and hawing about doing it, right? Or they're like, oh, this isn't the right time for me to book this call, or I have a lot going on right now, so I'll book it in a couple months. And sometimes they don't even want to book the free call. So even if people are engaging or following you or participating in your content, that doesn't mean they're taking the next step with you, right? So if they don't trust that you have a solution to their biggest problem that they want solved, they're not going to move forward and get into any sort of sales conversation with you. Now, let's say you do get people to book calls, which again, yay, we're getting calls booked. Now, maybe what you're seeing is that the people getting on your calls have a ton of questions about the offer. They need to go into tons and tons of details about their personal situation to even get to a place where there's a conversation about working together. Your sales calls are going super long. Maybe they're an hour or even longer. And maybe they're not even ending up in a sale. You have this huge long conversation with somebody and they still end up not buying from you. That is another really important sign to pay attention to determine how much trust your audience has with you, your offer, and what you're selling. Now, finally, and this is kind of the worst, right? If you've had this experience, even after you answer all their questions, you're super honest, you're very forthcoming, you're excited, they're excited. Everybody's like, yeah, this sounds great. Let's move forward. Let's take the next steps. Here's the link, send you the link to sign up. Then a couple days later, they come back and say, it's too expensive. It's not the right time. I just need to think about it. I want to do this later. All of those really frustrating kind of BS excuses that people have for why they don't want to work with you. Or maybe they're just ghosting you altogether after a sales conversation. You have a great sales conversation. You spend an hour with the person. It seems like they're going to buy, and then they just literally disappear. Tell me that's not the worst, right? I've had that experience before. It is so frustrating. So if that's any of the above, whether it's no engagement on your content, whether it is people not moving forward with actually setting up sales conversations, whether it's your sales conversations taking a ton of time and people having a bazillion questions, or they're getting on these sales conversations and even when they seem like they're going to buy, they end up backing out or ghosting. Those are all signs that you're dealing with a buyer trust issue and we need to fix it. Now, I completely understand how this feels. We had a period of time in our business this year where it was really bizarre. We went from having lots of yeses, lots of people ready to go, and then really it was like summer hit, and then all of a sudden people were like, not right now, maybe later, all of that. So I personally know what it feels like. It's so frustrating when people don't buy, even though they were saying, this is what I want, this is exactly what I'm looking for, this sounds great. And especially when people ghost, that's literally the thing that drives me up the wall the most. But when you have this really nice, friendly, connected conversation with somebody and then they just literally disappear. So if you're experiencing that, trust me, I know exactly how that feels. It's so frustrating because you're a high integrity coach. You don't want to be pushy or sleazy or try to use this like intense pressure to get people to buy. You don't want to threaten people, which I definitely have heard some stories about people feeling like they were literally like threatened into an offer, which I don't exactly know how that happens, but that is probably not the way you want to sell, right? So you're frustrated because you're trying to have this really ethical, high integrity, supportive sales conversation, and people are literally just ghosting you and treating you like you don't matter. Your time is worthless. I know it can be really harsh to say that, but that can be how it feels when this happens. I know you're great at what you do, but you're finding that other people just don't seem to believe you. They're like, you know what? I'm going to do this later, or I don't think this is the right thing for me to do right now. They clearly do not believe that you can help them the way that you know that you can help them. Getting ghosted feels like crap. I'm just going to say it. And it can make you feel like you don't even want to book more sales calls because you don't feel like getting rejected over and over. It's almost like if you're dating and every time you go out on a date, you have this really great conversation. You feel like you really connected with the person. You said, hey, do you want to go out on a second date? The guy says, sure, yeah, I'll text you and let's set something up. And then they're just totally gone, right? No answer, no response, no reach out, no response to any of your texts. Reminds me of that book/movie, He's Just Not That Into You, right? Makes me so glad I'm not dating anymore. But that's how it feels when it happens in sales conversations. Now, obviously, some people can detach from that and can completely separate themselves from any sort of emotional experience with sales. But that's generally not how the people I work with feel. They feel discouraged. They feel rejected. They feel like, oh my gosh, why are these people treating me that way? And so if that's your experience, we got to fix it. I'm sharing this with you because I don't want you to feel like you are alone or that this is weird or that there's something uniquely wrong with you or deficient or that you just suck at selling. Everybody is experiencing an increase in this kind of buyer behavior, and it's because buyer trust is so low. And because it's so low, they're almost like they don't even trust that they need to treat you like a person anymore. And if that's the experience, then it can really start to be discouraging. And then it can turn into this vicious cycle where you start to pull back, you start to shrink back, and you don't put yourself out there as much as you need to in order to make sales. Now, there's a few ways that a lot of people try to fix this that have nothing to do with buyer trust and are not actually supporting your desire to build buyer trust. Maybe you think you have to sell something very low ticket and just get people in the door before they'll spend more money with you. Now, that strategy can work. I'm not going to say it can't work, but just because somebody buys something lower ticket with you is not a guarantee they're going to spend more. So yeah, you can do the low ticket into a high ticket funnel strategy, but that doesn't mean that people are magically going to start finding your offer desirable or trustworthy. So use that strategy with caution. I would look at your main offer first and how you're presenting that to build trust before you start layering on a bunch of low ticket things to try to get people in the door. Maybe another way you try to do it is like, okay, I'm going to make people trust me. I'm going to show them I'm an expert. And you pack your content full of education and how-tos, hoping that people will just be convinced that you know what you're talking about and will be compelled to work with you. Tons of education, tons of information, especially if you're using expert speak, is actually repellent to potential clients and really just attracting people who are either the DIYers who want to do it all themselves or the people that just like to feel good like they're doing something by following you, even if they're actually not taking any action. Maybe you add more and more deliverables to your offer. Maybe you pack it full of more one-on-one sessions, give them more support. You're thinking maybe people just want more time with you and that's why they're not buying. Sometimes that can help, but that's probably not going to actually create substantially more buyer trust from a big picture perspective. Now, maybe it's the flip side. Instead of packing your offer full of a bunch of stuff, maybe you actually shrink it down because you think that, oh, if I only ask people to book a few sessions at a time and spend only a few $100s, you're hoping that people will say yes, even though you know there's no way they're going to get a significant result in such a short period of time. What that ends up doing is that hurts your client retention. It hurts client satisfaction rate. Ultimately, it's just as hard to sell a low ticket package as it is to sell a higher ticket package. And so you're making it harder for yourself. And you're also not delivering as high of a quality of customer experience as if you were to sell what you actually want to sell, which delivers the actual transformation that clients want. So if you're taking any of those steps, trying to do the low ticket into the bigger offer thing, putting a ton of content out that's all super educational, trying to prove your expertise, pumping up your offers with tons more deliverables, or going the opposite direction, slashing them down to the bare bones because you think maybe people just want something lower price, lower ticket. All of those things are at best not addressing the trust issues, and at worst could actually be making the trust issues more significant. We're going to go through those 3 types of trust and how to build them. But ultimately, you need to build buyer trust in a way that makes your price or program duration completely irrelevant to whether they buy and gets people buying quickly. So rather than thinking I need to raise the price and make it more premium and more high touch, or I need to lower the price and cut out all the extras so that they're just getting the bare bones to get started, it shouldn't matter, right? It shouldn't matter what the price is, what the deliverables are. Your program should be able to be presented in a way that makes it irresistible to your ideal clients. and that people are coming to you already trusting that you can help them and that your offer is the solution to their problem. So that's the big message I want you to take home. Now let's get into the nitty-gritties of how. I want to tell you a couple of ideas about how to actually do this. The first and most important type of trust that we have to build in our audience is trust in you as the coach or practitioner. We cannot just rely on our credentials and our education to expect people to trust us. People generally are not trusting a lot of quote unquote experts right now, especially after COVID. If you're in the medical space, there was a lot of questionable recommendations and things that happened that made people very skeptical, even if you're an expert. So we can't rely on that for them to trust you. And we also can't rely on them to just trust you as a person. Even though you know that you're high integrity, you know that you would never do something to hurt somebody, especially not intentionally, and that if you ever did accidentally hurt somebody, you would make it right. You know that about yourself, but people don't know you. They don't know you from your next door neighbor. They don't necessarily know that you're going to take care of them. So we have to really dig into some questions like, does your audience believe that you are an expert who can solve their problem? Have you efficiently demonstrated that? Do they believe that you have their best interest in mind? Maybe they think you're just in it for the money, which again is probably not true, but that's what a lot of people think right now. Do they believe that you really want to help them, that you are able to help them, and that you're the person that they should work with? Because if they don't feel any of those things, if they're like any sort of wishy-washy about you as a person, they're not going to buy. People buy from people. And if we're not doing a good job of building that trust in us as the expert, we're not going to get the buyers. That's something that we've had to really look at our marketing strategy to make sure I'm effectively building trust. There's a lot of stuff I used to do before I had my baby, who's not a baby anymore. She's very much a toddler, but there was a lot of stuff I was doing before that was effectively building trust that kind of fell to the wayside after I had my baby. And 2 years later, that ripple effect starts to show up, and we were realizing, okay, yeah, we got to start getting out there. We got to start demonstrating trust. We got to start demonstrating expertise more. We got to get you in front of new audiences. So that is something where we can't just assume that we've built credibility with our audience. We can't just assume that people should trust us. We need to actually earn that trust in us as the provider. But there's a couple of different ways you can do that. One, you can create educational content that gets people to trust you. Now, we need to make sure, first of all, it's not the only content we're sharing, that educational, how-to, more informative type of content. It cannot be our whole content strategy, but we can definitely use that to our advantage to prove to people that they can trust us as an expert. It's really important that we don't talk in expert speak, though, because if we're talking way over their heads, that's actually not building trust in a solid way that's going to lead them to want to work with us. So just be careful. There's an effective way to do educational content. Putting out high-value educational content that demonstrates your thought leadership, demonstrates your expertise, is going to build trust in you as the provider. Another way we can do this is to share belief-shifting content and specifically to bust industry myths to demonstrate that you're not just some cookie-cutter coach that's regurgitating what everybody else is saying that doesn't work, that's not helpful, or that just didn't work for the person that you want to work with. We need to take a stand for something. We need to ruffle some feathers. We need to have an opinion. And as much as I know sometimes that can feel scary, that is critical to building buyer trust, is to actually standing for something and even talking about things in the industry that are shady or unhelpful or just plain wrong. A third way you can do this is to show up in a more personally connecting way. The best way to do this is video or audio or both. When people listen to your voice, they actually feel like they're getting to know you. They're able to experience your energy in a way that they can't get from written content. So if you're doing all of your content as either written Instagram posts or these like text over B-roll type reels, that's not necessarily going to build trust in you as the coach or provider. The more you can show up and actually talk to people, that is going to help you build trust and build connection with your audience. And that is one of the best ways to build trust in you. Now, trust in you is not the only type of trust, and it's not even necessarily the one that most people struggle with. The second type of trust that needs to be built is trust in your offer. So they could trust you as an expert. They could think you're amazing. They could feel connected to you. But if they don't think your offer is a true solution to their problem, they're not going to buy. If they think that your offer is too similar to what they've already tried or just another thing that's going to be a waste of money for them, they're not going to buy. If they don't know for sure that your offer helps people get results, they're probably not going to buy. So even though they might love you, they're not going to spend money with you if they don't believe that they are actually investing in a solution to the problem that they have to get results that they want, even if they think you're amazing. To help build trust in your offer, the most important step is to develop a signature methodology to demonstrate how you can help somebody get a lasting transformation in the best, fastest, and easiest way possible. That is one of the biggest focuses we have in the first half of our Nourished Business Accelerator program, because when you can create that methodology that demonstrates how you serve people, that can build so much trust in what you have to sell when you're able to effectively express the offer that you have and the way that you serve people in a way that's different than what they've already tried. Another way to build trust in your offer, in your content specifically, is to point out specific mistakes that they're currently making to help demonstrate that the way that you approach the problem is different than what they've already been trying. Because if you're not showing them, here's why what you're currently doing isn't working, then they might think mistakenly that the way that you're going to help them is literally just more of what they've already been doing. So they need to know that the way that you serve them, the way that you support them in getting the result is not what they've been doing, because if it's just what they're doing now, then why would they pay you to do the same thing that they're already doing? So we need to make sure we're positioning our offer as something that's different than what they've already tried. A third way to build trust in your offer is to show more case studies and testimonials, showing results that people are getting, showing the journey that people went on. I love the process of sharing behind the scenes of how you're serving your clients on a day-to-day basis. This is a really easy thing that I don't think any of us tend to do enough, where you're sharing that in the moment story about a client and how you guys are working through a challenge. Basically showing the behind the scenes, showing the before and after, showing the tangible results that you help people get. That is going to help build trust in your offer. The third type of trust that you need to build is trust in themselves. This is one that a lot of people miss because they're so focused on themselves as the coach. Like, I need to be trustworthy. I need to be an expert. I need to have an amazing offer. All of that is great. But if the person that wants to buy from you is lacking trust in their ability to follow through with the program, they're not as likely to buy. Now, sometimes they will, and sometimes they'll surprise themselves that they end up getting better results than they were expecting. But people have bought a lot of stuff to solve their problems, and if they're still experiencing the problem, that means it didn't work. So they're going to start to feel jaded. They're going to start to feel skeptical, and maybe they're going to start to believe that they're not even capable of getting the result that your offer promises. Maybe they're questioning if they're even going to be able to stick with the program because their life is busy, it's stressful, especially post-COVID. Things got real quiet for a bit, but now they're back full steam and people have a lot going on. So if they're questioning, I don't know if I have time to actually make the most out of this offer, they're probably not going to buy. Ultimately, what this gets down to is, do they believe they will be successful as long as they have your support? Because if they're questioning their likelihood of success, they're much less likely to buy. The person who's worried, fearful, not sure if something's going to work for them, that person is much less likely to buy than somebody who feels very confident that your solution is going to be the answer and that it will work for them. So in order to help your ideal clients build trust in themselves, first you can identify the biggest mental roadblocks for somebody to take the leap into your offer and help show them why they don't have to worry about that getting in the way. There's going to be so much mental chatter about why it's not going to work for them. And if we don't actually literally call out the elephant in the room, they're not going to be as confident in your offer. But if we speak to it, if we bring it to the surface, and if we address it, that's going to massively increase their confidence in themselves. You can also show your audience that it's not their fault that they haven't been successful yet. You can do that by pointing out common mistakes, showing them that they're believing certain myths that are actually holding them back. You don't want your audience to feel like they're somehow uniquely deficient or incapable. You want to show them that they're actually very capable if they have the right plan and support to follow. Finally, you can focus on the benefits of your offer over the deliverables. So that way they're not seeing the offer as just another huge commitment that they have to dedicate time to. If they look at your offer and feel like it's just going to be a ton of work added to their busy schedule, they're going to shy away from it. By focusing on the results and the benefits over the deliverables, you can help them see this is actually going to make your life easier rather than more difficult. Those are the 3 types of buyer trust we have to build: trust in you, trust in your offer, and trust in themselves to be able to follow through and get the result. And if you are not building all 3 of those types of trust effectively, you're not going to be making as many sales as you could, and you're not going to be growing your business. I hope that the tips I gave you today are really helpful for you to start seeing opportunities to build trust as a coach, as a practitioner, as somebody who really does care about their clients getting amazing results. That way, more people can come into your paid containers and experience the transformation that you have to offer.